So now we're going to jump over to question number 3, which was written by Jay himself. Who would you recast as Banky and Holden in any future movies? So with that said, we're going to bring them in, and we will be starting with Jay. 60 seconds opening when you begin speaking.
Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry. They have such a great fucking chemistry. They can love each other. They can hate each other. And I think that's what exemplifies Banky and Holden. If we are going to move forward with these characters, you make all the faces that you want. But what it comes down to is the fact that you need people who can sit there and fucking love each other and hate each other and act like brothers at the very same point in time. Because not all family likes each other, but all family loves each other. And throughout all of the View Askew movies, guess what Banky and Holden have done? As much as they might not like each other, they still fucking love each other. Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry.
All right, he's gonna go there. We're gonna jump over to Will. 6 seconds when you've been speaking.
So I chose Jason Schwartzman and Kieran Culkin. Specifically Jason Schwartzman as Holden and Kieran Culkin as Banky, just because these two have shown that they can work. They can just work wonders by themselves in their own movies. But when I look at the film that they did together, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, they really brought a kind of like weird chemistry that I actually rather enjoyed. Even though they don't share any scenes, you can kind of see like where they could work well together. They could bring the kind of smarminess, the kind of bereftness. It's just the kind of levels that you would need if you're going to actually recast these two characters in a film. So that's my pick.
I am down just so I can voice. We're going to jump over to JPO. JPO, 6 seconds when you begin.
Yeah, so I initially just don't like this question because we have a perfect two. And I don't think we need another one here. But then I realized, well, hey, wait a minute. You know what else nerds love? You know what Kevin Smith's doing a lot of? Kind of that multiverse kind of recasting thing. You know, we saw it in Clerks 3. He's now making Clerks 1, basically. So let's go meta. Let's go with the thing that we would all kind of get a chuckle out of. Jon Stewart and David Schwimmer, the two people that the company tried forcing on Kevin Smith back in the day because they were hot commodities. You already have a built-in relationship with Jon Stewart. He's in Jay and Silent Bob, and David Schwimmer's Peacock didn't work out, so I think he would take he would jump at the chance of being something that's a proven commodity here. I think you'd have a lot of fun here. There's already an in-joke built already that's got me chuckling and smiling before we even see a scene here, and it's not going to piss off anyone. Unlike the rest of these choices, they're just simply on paper going to upset the normal fans because we don't want this. So I think my choice works on many levels here, and I'm excited to see it. And now, unlike before, I actually really want to see it happen. So Jon Stewart and the Schwimmer.
And Tato, 6 seconds when you begin speaking.
Alrighty. So I went a little different than these guys did. I went with a couple of the Cobra Kai kids. I went with Tanner Buchanan, who plays Robbie in Cobra Kai. Kid has a fantastic Affleck cry face. And then I also went Jacob Bertrand, who plays Hawk. He's got great nerdy humor that could very much cross over to a Banky type. He's a magic nerd that cross over well to a comic book artist, potentially. And I went with these younger cats to do like a just out of high school prequel. We can see Holden being a doof and failing in other relationships and stuff like that. And, Banky doing Banky shit, getting into weird mishaps. We can see them creating Bluntman and Chronic, starting their studio off. And Kevin Smith has interviewed and worked with these cats before. We know they have great chemistry from being on that show together. So I think Jacob Bertrand and Tanner Buchanan would make a great Banky and Holden.
Time. All right. Open debate is going to start with with Jay. His 30 seconds when he begins.
I think we got the greatest quote unquote origin story movie for Banky and Holden ever with Chasing Amy. It's not something that was ever stated by Kevin Smith that he wanted to do a remake of. I get it. That's one thing. Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry, I think moving forward would make great choices because not only can both of them do great dramatic scenes, both of them can be great.
So the reason why I'm going to go ahead and shoot down the Cobra Kai kids is that the reason why Banky and Holden work well as characters is that they are world worn. They have seen the world. Putting two kids in there who haven't seen the world, not a great idea. Whereas with Kieran Culkin and with Jason Schwartzman, they really could look the part. They could act the part. We've seen them do dramatic. We've seen them do comedic. We've seen them do broad. We've seen them do subtle. We've seen them do all of these things. So why not throw these two great people together and see what they could do?
I want that Bullet Train, sequel spinoff too here. But again, when you say Holden and Banky, I mean, I understand maybe if you did a reboot or whatever that they would be slightly different here. But man, do they not scream Holden or Banky, either one of them? So again, I think you're just simply going with great actors, not the right role here. I love Schwartzman, and Karen's been proven to be fun too. Again, I feel like they're very similar here. Affleck and Lee are different, very contrast characters here, and I feel like you're casting the same person now for these two vastly different parts here. And then again, the younger kids, I don't want to be spoon-fed.
Muted.
Thank you. As far as Banky and Holden being these worldly characters and stuff, they were 23 and 25 in that flick, like acting age-wise, and the characters were also of that ilk. So I'm just peeling them back a little bit. It's not a great leap back. As far as Kevin Smith not wanting to do a prequel, he's never said he wants to do Chasing Amy with Brian Tyree Henry and Aaron Taylor Johnson either. So Kevin Smith has not personally spoken on any of our picks here, so let's take him out of it.
Kevin Smith has also said that he's not the director to make another Chasing Amy movie, which means that wouldn't be the choice there. Probably because it's the right choice for him to make because he is a cishet man, and that's a movie about the LGBTIQA community. But Brian Tyree Henry and Aaron Taylor Johnson do everything it is that I need them to do with a dynamic duo. They love each other. They can hate each other. They have scenes together. Kieran Culkin and fucking Jason Schwartzman do not. Nobody cares about those kids from Cobra Kai because if they did, Netflix wouldn't have canceled their show.
So just because they have no scenes together in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World doesn't mean that they could not work well together. Just because Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry do have scenes together doesn't mean that they're the right picks for Banky and Holden. Jon Stewart and David Schwimmer, great, you have the inside joke there, but I've heard nothing as to why they would be the perfect Banky and Holden in this alternate universe. The Cobra Kai kids, sorry, those 5 years do make a difference in world life experience, and I want to be able to see that.
Thank you, Will, for being the first person to try to knock my choices. I love how the other two didn't have anything bad to say about them. For the Cobra Kai kids, again, I don't want to be spoon-fed a backstory here. It's an unnecessary prequel here. And high school shenanigans, it's not Kevin Smith's wheelhouse here. Please, let's let him write stuff that he knows that he wants to write, even his first film was not about stupid shit like that here. Mine, they are the perfect pair because, again, the joke is built in, and they don't necessarily have to be the focal point. Again, nobody wants Chasing Amy 2. Nobody wants.
Alrighty, again, like as Kevin Smith said, he doesn't want to do Chasing Amy. Then he doesn't want to do any of our Chasing Amy's. I don't know what you're on about, Jay. You haven't even mentioned who Brian Tyree Henry or Aaron Taylor Johnson would be playing of the two. So what's up with that? Cobra Kai was not canceled. The creators have always said that they're going out on their own terms. So that is just factually inaccurate on the Cobra Kai being canceled part. These kids are really good actors. They have great chemistry. They can pull off Banky and Holden. And I think
Jumping back over to you, JPO, just because Jay left, so we're just going to rotate the back.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, what happened? Yeah. So again, the first two, Will and Jay, are similar arguments because again, Brian Tyree Henry and Aaron Taylor Johnson, they're great. Yeah, give them in their own movie, even if it's not the Bullet Train spinoff, but not for these two characters here. Like Tato said, who's who? I do not see either one of them being either character, let alone someone being Banky. Um, uh, Will's they're too similar now to where I don't know if they would be the best two leads because they are more of an enemy or a friend and not necessarily the two main focal points of a movie here. No,
So the irony that JPO said is that he was trying to put labels on the ones that I said. Ironically, I actually said Jason Schwartzman would be Holden and Kieran Culkin would be Banky. So you actually have the two roles flipped. So different roles than what they actually play in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. He's right. Jay did not say who he would pick as Banky or Holden between Harry, Johnson and Henry. So,
And you're muted.
Kevin Smith's not trying to do origin stories. That's why he's probably never going to cast Bertrand and Buchanan. Jason Schwartzman and Kieran Culkin, I'm sorry, never had scenes together. They don't have any sort of cohesion together. Jon Stewart's doing way too much political shit right now, which I love, by the way. Check out his shit. Fuck Apple Plus, but check out everything it is that he does. And David Schwimmer's just the fucking voice that nobody remembers outside of Pivot from Ross. At least Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry have things that they have done together in at least the last 5 years where people actually love them together.
And then Tato, your last one just because of the rotation, and we'll do everyone's 90 seconds.
Okay. Doop doop doop. So sorry, yes. Good joke, JPO, the Stewart and Schwimmer thing. It's meta. That's very clever. But that's it. There's no actual substance to that casting. I'm still confused on the Aaron Taylor Johnson, Brian Tyree Henry thing. I don't know who's playing who. And once again, Kevin Smith, not relevant to our argument here. He's not doing any of our Chase and Amy. So, let's see. What do I have?
And time. All right, so now we're going over to Jay. 90 seconds. Use it however you want. Knock yours, pro yours, whatever. 90 seconds closing when you begin.
It's not even that they're interchangeable. It's the simple fact that they bounce so well off of each other. You could literally choose Aaron Taylor Johnson to be Banky, and you could choose Brian Tyree Henry to be Holden. Jon Stewart and David Schwimmer, like I said, nobody cares about David Schwimmer anymore. We're about 25 years too late for that. I'm sorry. Jon Stewart's way too political at this point in time. Nobody knows who the fuck Jacob Bertrand is or who Taylor Buchanan is. I'm sorry. That show got canceled by Netflix. They got taken over. Nobody gives a shit. Jason Schwartzman and Kieran Culkin. Legit. Not a great choice just for the simple fact that they happen to be in the same movie. They never act together in that movie. At least what I'm doing is I'm giving you a cohesive pair of people who are able to run a gambit of emotions when it comes to Brian Tyree Henry and Aaron Taylor Johnson. Even if it is just in a single thing Bullet Train, you have to take into consideration everything it is that they've done outside of that because we have brought outside things into this. All of the promotional interviews that they have done and everything else it is that they have done shows that they absolutely love each other, but they are able to show how much they can actually hate each other in a singular movie. If you don't think that is what encapsulates Banky and Holden's relationship throughout the entirety of the View Askew-verse, the Clerk saga, whatever it may be that you want to call it, I'm sorry, you're wrong. They do such a great job, and this is why these are the greatest choice.
All right, going to Will. Up to 90 seconds when you begin speaking.
Great. Johnson and Henry have had one movie where they have a lot of chemistry. Well, ironically, Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson had 2 movies where they had a lot of chemistry, but then you take them out of the MCU and you put them in Men in Black International, and they have no chemistry whatsoever. So there's no like guarantee that they're going to have this, the same kind of level of chemistry that they have. You have the Cobra Kai kids. Sorry, just because they're about a 5-year, there's about a 5-year difference between where they were now versus what Banky and Holden had in Chasing Amy. That about 5 years of experience means a lot, especially when they're in that kind of the field that they're in. So they're bad choices. Jon Stewart and David Schwimmer. It's cute on paper because of the inside joke for Mallrats. It absolutely is great, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work in the film. It doesn't mean that they're going to have chemistry together. It doesn't mean anything. Poor choice. Just because Kieran Culkin and Jason Schwartzman did not have any scenes together doesn't mean that they cannot exemplify what these characters are. Schwartzman has proven to be a great morose character. Kieran Culkin has proven to be a pretty broad character when he's given the right script. And the fact that they have that, they could bring this they could bring a chemistry together if they were.
All right, JPO, up to 90 seconds when you begin.
Aaron Taylor Johnson, Brian Tyree Henry, love those actors. I also don't want Sean Penn and Daniel Day-Lewis in these characters either here. You still don't know who's going to play who, Jay, because they don't fit these characters. Schwartzman and Culkin, now on the other hand here, maybe Banky, but again, they're not different enough to where I could see them being the lead. Maybe if they were brothers or something, but again, neither one of these characters. I don't think anyone's coming to see that here. We definitely don't want a prequel. We don't want a sequel. We don't want a prequel either of these high schoolers. Like, oh my god, that just seems like such a cash grab. You're out of ideas here, and plus, we're gonna see this the entire time just thinking of their Cobra Kai characters. Let them do something else on their own here. The best part about mine here, and I'm agreeing with the people. In fact, Will, I hope they don't have chemistry here, because that can be another one of the jokes. Is the fact that, like, man, well, maybe these two shouldn't be these characters. This could be Randall's next movie here. Hey, man, I heard Silent Bob told me a great story once. Let's make that a movie. Mine doesn't have to be the leads here, and this is the only movie that's not going to piss off fans. That's who we're appeasing here, is us, the losers that go to the road shows, the ones that will buy that Blu-ray the first day it's out. And if it's a prequel or a sequel, we're not going to be happy with that. But if it's just a kind of a joke where they're co-stars or even a cameo, we're going to love it because we're going to know what it is. We're part of the joke. That's what these last couple of films have been about. They're referential. That's what Kevin Smith is doing now, and this absolutely fits it. And it's the only movie that won't piss us off.
All right.
See?
And Taylor, up to 90 seconds, you begin speaking.
Alrighty, so I do just want to clarify that I'm not doing them in high school. It is them just out of high school as they are starting the company. I believe I said that. If I didn't, now I am saying that. And as far as those 5 years of worldly experiences, I want to see them get those worldly experiences. That's where the show is. That's what the movie is, rather. Like I said, Kevin Smith has had a great rapport with these two kids before. They've had a great rapport with each other, the same as Brian Tyree Henry and Aaron Taylor Johnson. They also do a bunch of backstage interviews together. I've watched Aaron Taylor Johnson and Brian Tyree Henry. I've watched the Cobra Kai kids. They both have a very similar level of chemistry with each other. So as far as chemistry goes, they're the best. They don't have one movie. They have years and years. They have grown up together, just like Banky and Holden have. So they have that shared experience. They're both great actors with the emotions. Like I said, Tanner Buchanan has a great Ben Affleck cry face, and Jacob Bertrand is a very Banky-esque has a very Banky-esque comedy style. In person. So I think those two Cobra Kai kids would make a great show or a movie.
All right, and time. All right. Let's bring the judges in and decide who's going to get this point. All right, we're going to start with Brian on this one. Good luck.
Yeah, this was actually the closest one so far for me. I think they all had decent arguments, at least. I this time I think a couple of different people, several people made a tactical error in that they would say in the debate phase, this person hasn't told us this, and that gave them the opportunity to fill that hole. Told them exactly what they need to do to fill the holes in their debate, which I would have saved that for the closing, but that's just a whole different thing. Anyway, like I said, this was close. In my bottom, I don't hate you, Will. I don't hate you, Will, but I did put you in the bottom spot again this time. I gave him a score of 5. Right as his opening, he said, these two guys have great chemistry, even though they didn't have any scenes together, which makes no sense at all. And everybody else jumped on that. Later on, he did try to kind of defend that and say, there's nothing to say they could have good chemistry and things like that. But the fact is, he did say that in his opening, and everybody else jumped on that. He did have some good points later on as far as attacking other people, though. Like especially, I like the Thor Men in Black analogy, where it's like just because you have chemistry in one movie doesn't mean you're not going to have another. I thought that was a very good point he made. In third place, I have Tato with his Cobra Kai kids. I gave him a score of 6. I think that there wasn't a whole lot of pitch for them. I did kind of like the idea he was proposing with like making like a prequel with them starting out the company. I think that would be kind of a different way to take it. So you're not just trying to continue the characters, different actors, you're kind of portraying them at a slightly younger age when they're starting out the company. That was a good approach to it. And he did a good job at defending that with the age attacks, people saying, that they were so much younger. And it's like, well, they're only a couple years younger because they were only 23 and 25 or whatever in that movie. So I gave him a 6. In second place, I have Jay. I think that he did a good job of pitching the fact that not only do these two characters have been in one movie, they have chemistry, because everybody tried to say why their people have chemistry, but he especially jumped on the fact that they have kind of that love-hate relationship. The way they bicker and argue is exactly the kind of way you would see Banky and Holden do it. So I thought that part of his argument is what fit best with the characters. I gave him a score of 7. And so for first place with a score of 8, I do have JPO. I liked his kind of sideways approach to this. The whole meta aspect where he's kind of like, that he, as he said several times, this is what Kevin Smith is doing now in his last 2 movies, Reboot and Clerks 3. He's doing the meta thing. This is exactly the kind of thing he would do now, is put them in. It might be what we centered around them, but to have them play these characters in a future movie, I could absolutely see him doing that. All
right, and then for me, this was the barn burner, but in terms of mid, I wasn't sold on any of these. So at the bottom, I have Tato. No, I'm sorry, at Will at 4. I liked his closing of that they don't have to be on screen, but they fit the characters. That really actually bumped him up because it was not as close up to that point. But I had him at 4. I just wasn't sold on like why. He just kind of vaguely said that they would fit it, and I believed him. So I was like, oh, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but not enough to like really go above and beyond that. Tato really sold him or saved himself in the closing as well to be just not too bad, but he only also got a 4.5. He set the tone of it's not a prequel. It's more of just an early stage of their life, and like you said, the company, and really the Ben Affleck face and the humor really worked for me. So between Jay and JPO, it was really close. I really had no idea where I was going to go with this because on paper, Jay has a better answer, but JPO gave me an opinion on what he would pitch for it. And I really liked his idea, but I didn't like the idea in terms of my taste. Like I was like, I don't know if I would go see that. So I liked the pitch from a debate perspective, but not from an audience perspective. So the tie did go to Jay on that one, but close, like 5.5, and then JPO with a 5. Like all these guys, just none of them sold me on why I was picking them, but all of them very low scorings. But Jay just edged that one out for me by 0.5. Papa, what are your scores?
I am the exact opposite of both of y'all.
You're all 10s.
Hysterical. First off, if I had $1 for every time somebody said Kevin Smith has not stated in an interview blah 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 this entire debate, I'd be a millionaire. It would be great. Also, I did really enjoy. I believe it was JPO and Will waited for Jay to be out of the room before they said, "Hey Jay, we don't know who's playing who," but then Tato says it while Jay is in the room, giving Jay the ability to say, "Okay, Aaron Taylor Johnson, I believe he said for Banky, and then Brian Tyree Henry for Holden." So anyways, like I said, I'm the exact opposite. In last place, I have JPO. I feel like the only reason he gave for Jon Stewart and David Schwimmer is the meta. And when somebody said, I believe it was Will who said it, it was like, that's the only reason your answer makes sense is for the meta, haha, that's funny. But outside of that, your option makes no sense at all. JPO then countered that by saying, thanks for trying to hit my argument, and then goes completely somewhere else. I don't feel he ever actually defended his point or his to it all. I also don't remember him telling me who was going to play who. So I gave JPO 7, which is more than either of y'all gave anybody. So it's great. In second
I have
place,
a 7 and an 8.
Never mind. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. I don't pay attention to any of them. Third, I have Jay. I felt Jay had the best answer on paper. Again, a lot of it was explaining the chemistry, but not telling me who was going to play who. And I really enjoyed that that Will and Tato told me who was going to play who. So I wasn't guessing during a lot of that debate. But that being said, I still gave Jay 8 points because that's how I roll. In second place, I have Tato. I gave Tato 9 with the Cobra Kai kids. One thing that I really liked was Tato actually gave me a story, what we're building to, why we're recasting them, what we're doing. Even though he told me Kevin Smith has never said he wants to do a prequel like 12 times. So, I mean, that got kind of old. But I did give Will the win with 10 points. And this is something y'all talked about. He did make the comment that they have chemistry, but he also said they have range. Like right at the very beginning, that we've seen them do comedy and started listing off all these other things they've done. So we know they can act, and that I felt really built the starting point of his argument that I thought he did a really good job of in the rest of it.
All right, let me just fact check these numbers just to make sure I have the winner, because there's literally decimals. So I just want to make sure we have that. Okay. All right. This is actually, regardless of the scores, this is literally the closest one, so that makes me happy. All right. So with fourth place, with a combined score of 6.3, we have Will. In third place, with a combined score of 6.5, we have Tato, and a 0.1 difference for the winner of question number 3 is Jay with 6.8. Just pulled it out of his ass. JPO was 6.7, technically 6.67, and repeating by 1.7, but luckily it was still above below 6.8. So with that said, Jay is going to be getting the third point going into the final written question from the players, which is going to be